Hi, I'm Tony Todd, and welcome to Throwing Heat. I'm here with my co-host, Ross DeBoss, and today's guest played 24 years of Major League Baseball. He was the 1983 World Series MVP, and he was also a member of the 88 Dodgers World Series team. Known for being one of the best defensive catchers of his era, let's welcome to the show my new buddy, Mr. Rick Dempsey's in the house. What's up, Rick?
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Ross. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I got involved in doing a podcast myself, and I didn't think I was really going to like it all that much after doing, my television show for 15 years. But I have really enjoyed it. Take we interview all of the major college baseball coaches across the country. They're the
Mm-hmm.
most passionate people about baseball in the world, and I have not had a bad interview yet. I love those guys. They have a lot more passion than a lot of major league coaches and managers. So
Okay, well,
anyway,
you're definitely gonna love this interview because growing up in the Valley, did you ever think that you would play 24 years of Major League Baseball?
no, I didn't even think about how long it was going to last. It was all orchestrated for me from the very beginning. I could not go out for baseball my freshman and sophomore year because I didn't have a ride home at the end of practice. So my parents said, "You can't play baseball. You have to go out for track with your older brother. And then when you get your driver's license, you can go out for baseball." So I had to run track. I was a miler at Crespi High School. I ran a 426 mile when I was a sophomore and a 205 half mile. So,
Wow.
needless to say, the track coach was stunned and very angry when I came in and told him I'm playing baseball. That's my dream and what I want to do in my life. And boy, he didn't talk to me for 2 years.
Well, he thought it would just be best to use those talents, elsewhere because, I don't know, not too many brothers. I cannot run a mile still to this day, but I can get you in some sprints though. Brothers don't run sprints. I mean, the brothers in Africa maybe run miles, but not here in
Yeah,
America. So
there's people that say, how did you last so long? I had a running program that only maybe who was it? Rice, the football player from San Francisco who would
Jerry
run the
Rice.
fire break road. Yep, who would run the fire break roads like I did. 7.5 every day from the first day home at the end of every season. I started my workouts 3 times a week, 7.5 miles of those fire break roads, and then repeat quarters, 16 repeat quarters on Tuesday. And Thursdays, I had 3 miles of 220 sprints. So I mean, it was just a constant for 35 years, even before I started baseball. And that I think that's why I never got hurt, never pulled a muscle. The only time I was on a disabled list 2 times when Don Gullett threw at me for taking a swing too hard on a 2-ball no strike count. They used to do that in my days. And then the second time, Bo Jackson hit me when he came in from third base on a chopper back to the pitcher, and he broke my thumb. I was thankful when I got finished of that play that he didn't end my career because I made the right decision. When his head dropped, I went up on my toes so he could take me out and I could roll out of it. Um, I looked at my thumb and it was back on my wrist. I said, "Damn, it's never been back that far before." It didn't really hurt so much. I put it back in place. The good thing about that contact was I held him to less yards than Bosworth did.
Yeah,
That's
for
true.
sure.
Bosworth took Bo Jackson. I mean, Bo Jackson took Bosworth about 10 yards. I remember that play.
Hmm.
Yeah, he didn't get me that far. And I held on to the ball. He was out.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. So you grew up in the Valley and you had success early in your career. Your World Series team in Little League actually went to the World Series. Tell us about
Well, it
that.
wasn't the Little League World Series. We were in that competition, but we didn't get. We lost in the final. Um, at the same year that I went to Pony League World Series, our Little League, Canoga Park, Woodland Hills, won the World Series there. They were the ones that did that. We made it to the very last game. We had 13 tournaments, 12 of them on the West Coast. We won all of those. The manager of our team, named John Jennings, actually made the team famous. It wasn't the players, even though we did sign like 7 professionals came off that team. Even the
Wow.
Bat Boys signed a pro contract. He made it to the Hall of Fame. Robin Yount.
Robert Young played at Sunrise Little League, correct?
Yeah, he played no, he played at Woodland Hills actually.
Oh, he
Also,
did. Okay.
yeah, one year they had Woodland Hills Canoga Park Pony League team, and that's the one that won the 12 tournaments. But our manager robbed all those banks. He robbed 13 banks, while one in every city that we played in. They're trying to make a documentary of it right now. So, you know.
Well, Ross can make that happen.
I just heard the other day from some of the people that are producing the documentary that they ran into some financial issues where somebody stole about $750,000. Somehow they got a hold of the money that they were supposed to. So now they got to redo it again.
Wow, shocked. Hollywood, somebody stealing money. Unbelievable, Rick Dempsey. I never heard that in my life. I can't believe that would happen. It's unbelievable.
Gotta be dimmy.
So when you came up with the Twins, your manager was Billy Martin.
Yeah.
There were rumors. I don't know if it's true. I want to ask your opinion. Did he like to drink alcohol once in a while, or is that just a myth?
Just on occasion. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, it occasionally. You know, Billy was one of those managers, you know, that you really loved to play for. He would go out at night with you guys if you wanted to. He'd have drinks with you. He'd get in fights with you.
I saw the Reggie Jackson doc, and the first thing he did was he challenged Jackson to a fight. I mean, that's the first thing. Like the first week Jackson was on the Yankees, they wanted to fight. They fought. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Well, Billy was that way. You know, if you didn't do things Billy's way, you didn't give 100%. He was in your face. There's no, but Billy was one of those kind of guys. You know, he was a fighter. He'd get in a bar, he'd have a few pops, he'd want to take a swing at you. I saw him hit Dave Boswell after he won his 20th win. They went out drinking. They got in an argument of some sort. He hit Boswell. And he went down in the bar, and that all happened in Baltimore. But we were Yankees at the time. So that's the way Billy was. The good thing about him, he wouldn't hit you while you were down. That's when he'd kick you.
Wow. So. And that was way before cell phone. So
my God,
got in trouble. With the cell phone back then, you know, right. No one. What's the cell phone? They would say.
So we have a question from one of your fans here. It says, Uncle Ted Talks. He says, I want to know who is on Rick Dempsey's fantasy baseball team today.
Who is on my fantasy baseball team?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me think about Eddie Murray would have to be there at first base.
Okay. I actually played golf with Eddie Murray last year. He lives in Santa Clarita. And we actually had dinner about 4 months ago too. Very nice guy. Love him. Great storyteller too.
No, he's a great guy. You know, the media didn't like him because he just didn't want to talk to them all the time. They always wanted to accentuate all of his accolades. He didn't like the media talking about him, reminding him that he was in a home run race or something like that. He's got, 5 more to go for 500, that kind of thing. That's why he shut the media out for most of his career, because he just wanted to come to the ballpark and focus on winning baseball games and getting big hits for us. I've never seen a clutch hitter like him before, and I played with some of the best hitters in the game, and one that you rarely ever hear about, Ken Singleton. He was just an incredible switch hitter. Both of them were not. I think fundamentally, Ken Singleton might have been the best hitter I'd ever seen in the major leagues, but Eddie Murray was very productive, and anytime you needed a clutch base hit, holy smokes, Eddie could do it. Because if you ever watched him take batting practice, it would be a big lesson to every player that ever wanted to play the game. He would stand at home plate, and he just barely flipped the bat at the ball, left field, right field, right-handed, right field, left field. His batting practice was ugly. But at game time, when they changed speeds on him, and he'd sit back and look at, he'd take that pitch down and away and flip it right over the third baseman's head. Game over. or hit one out of the ballpark. If you ever even tried or even thought you tried to throw at him, you were in serious trouble.
Okay.
The Japanese came over and they scouted our team. We were going to go on a tour in Japan at the end of the season, and they saw Eddie hit a home run. They saw Cal Ripken hit home runs, and they saw me hit a home run. So every time we came up, they thought I was a home run hitter. I wasn't. Eddie
Negative.
and Cal, yeah, they would throw at him. So they made the mistake of knocking Eddie down, and we all looked at each other in the dugout and goes, he's in trouble now. Eddie hit the next pitch over the center field bleachers, over where the all the cameras and everything were at the top of the stadium, completely out of the stadium. They found the ball in a koi pond at the end of the parking lot.
Wow.
I mean, Eddie did the same thing in the 1983 playoffs against the White Sox. Tony La Russa threw at Eddie because they thought we threw at Ron Kittle on a 3-2 slider down and in. Now, come on, Tony. You know, if you're going to throw at somebody, it ain't going to be a slider down and in.
Exactly.
And Mike Flanagan did that. So they threw at Eddie and knocked Eddie down. They didn't hit Eddie, but they tried to. Eddie got right back in there. I tell you, he hit a ball in right center field at old Comiskey Stadium that went on top of the roof, farther than Reggie Jackson hit his ball in Detroit in that All-Star game. It was incredible.
Right.
You didn't want to mess with Eddie Murray. He had an ability to focus in that batter's box like nobody I ever saw.
And a lot of people do not know, Eddie Murray and Ozzie Smith attended the same high school, Lock High.
Oh yeah. No, we knew that. And who was better than Ozzie Smith? Mark Belanger was in there. Cal Ripken overall was one of the best shortstops in the history of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the speed and the agility that those two guys had, Belanger, but Cal made plays. He just made plays. He used his head out there. He played shallower, cut balls off. I played with some of the most incredible players that you'd ever want to see in the game. And he would have to be maybe one of the smartest shortstop and the most productive that I ever played with.
And he can dress his ass off. He's a very clean dresser. So let's get back to Uncle Ted. He wants to know the rest of your fantasy team. Yeah.
Well, okay. I want to take Paul Blair, even though I may be favoritizing the Orioles. But Paul Blair, if you ever saw him play, you would realize there's nobody that could ever. He played so shallow, it scared the hell out of you. But as soon as that ball was hit, if it didn't hit off the wall, it was in his glove.
Okay.
And he could cover more ground than anybody I ever saw. And he was a pretty good hitter until he got hit in the face. So I got to take Paul Blair there.
All right.
Oh, let me see. If I'm not including myself in there as the catcher, I'd have to say Johnny Bench is on my all-time team.
Okay.
He was. If I had an idol, it would have been him. I know I'm not much older than him, or if I am as old as he is. First baseman was Eddie. Okay. Third baseman, got to be Brooks Robinson.
Yeah,
24 Gold Gloves. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How
about left field?
Left field. I'm trying to think of somebody I played with or saw in left field that was hugely productive.
Well, you can just add me if you want. That's
huh?
Fine. You can just add me if you like.
There you go.
There you go.
So
okay, how about center field?
Yeah.
Who was this?
Center field.
Center field, I had Paul Blair.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah. Right field, I'm going to give it because he was a very productive offensive player and a good enough outfielder. With the Pittsburgh Pirates, left-hand hitter. Come on.
Ross
my
the
age
boss.
is
Dave Parker. Dave Parker.
Parker, thank you.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Dave Parker.
The Cobra.
The Cobra.
So-
he was.
You
awesome.
have a great personality, Rick. I mean, you really do. I mean, you really find humor in the game. You're one of these guys that always tries to make the best of it. You had the famous, rain delays, ran around the bases and slid into home. I mean, that's iconic. Tell me your funniest story when the pitcher wasn't throwing that well. The manager comes out and you come out to home. You come out to the pitching mound. Tell me the funniest conversation that you had with a pitcher, like to try to calm him down.
Before the game started in Baltimore, Earl Weaver always used to have a little pregame meeting with the starting pitcher and the starting catcher. And once in a while, he would tell the pitcher, how he wanted him to pitch certain hitters in the lineup. Well, that's a risky thing to do when Jim Palmer, who won 20 games 8 times and 3 Cy Young Awards, is telling Jim Palmer how he should pitch certain hitters, because he never forgot a pitch he gave up a base hit on, and he never forgot how he got hitters out. Well, we're playing in a game, and before the game, Earl had said, okay, don't throw Sexto Lescano a fastball because, he's got 8 hits on fastballs and the 10 at-bats against us so far this year, so don't throw him the fastball. We get in the game. Sexto, who was playing for the Milwaukee Brewers at the time, he gets a base hit, and now Jim's in trouble because he's now down 1 in the game. It's about the 6th inning. When Earl Weaver started to come out to the mound, when he put his hands in his back pocket, in his belt, it looked like you knew there was going to be a confrontation. He gets on the mound with Jim and he said, Jesus Christ, Palmer, I told you, Sexto Lescano can hit anybody's fastball, even your fastball. Mm-hmm. And he said, you won't ever do what I tell you to do, but I got to watch that shit all the time. He says, Earl, the only thing you know about pitching is you couldn't hit it. Now get the fuck off the mound.
Awesome.
Holy shit.
That's crazy.
I'm getting out of here before they get in a big fight.
Right.
But that's the way it was between Palmer and Earl Weaver. It was hilarious sometimes watching and listening to them argue and fight with each other.
Yeah. Well, we have another question from one of your fans. This is from the legendary sports writer, Steve Henson. He wants to know, he says, you're a living legend. I'm holding a baseball camp for incoming high school freshmen, July 24th through the 28th at Canal Creek Field in Thousand Oaks. He said he would be honored if you come out one day and work with the catchers.
You just tell them you've got my number. Give them my number. We'll set it up.
There you go.
I'm Rick's agent. He does charge to make an appearence, so we'll talk about that a little later.
Steve, yep, exactly.
We'll talk about that. You also had Lasorda as your manager too, back in the '80s when Lasorda was like kind of a wild child, I would say. He was kind of out there, and he would very, very vocal, very physical with the players. Is there anything that you learned from Lasorda when he was your manager? I mean, when you were there in Los Angeles?
Of the 3 notorious managers that I played for, Earl Weaver, and Billy Martin and Tommy Lasorda, Tommy was probably the best motivator of all of them. The other 2, I had a great time with Tom, and Tommy always managed the Dodgers well. I would still put the other 2 guys ahead of them as smart baseball guys, even though Tommy was smart also. I put him up there too. But I just said I had an opportunity to play for the other 2, and I thought he was a little bit better at orchestrating the games. But Tommy was such a great motivator, such a great speaker that I often have said he's the only guy I know who talks so well he could talk the devil out of hell. And he was just one way. He had a gift when he spoke to people that made him, and we had a chance to see it on a regular basis in 1988 when we won the World Series and they got the worst World Series team on paper in history.
Wow. Playing
the best World Series team on paper in history. Bob Costas made the mistake of saying, that we were the worst World Series team on paper in history, and we had no chance of beating the Oakland A's. Tommy, he realized that was his moment.
Exactly.
Bring the team together. We had a team meeting. He said, Jesus, did you guys hear what Bob Costas said about you guys? going into this World Series. No, what did he say, Tommy? He said, you were the worst World Series team on paper in history, and we would never even come close to beating the Oakland A's. So let's go
Wow.
out there and get them.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the World 88 World Series, we have another question from your fan, Chris McCartney. He says, "Is there
Chris McCartney? Let me just explain who he is. He's one of the best softball players in the Valley. I play with him twice a week. He's unbelievable. He's a great guy, and I just love him to death. But Tony, go ahead."
Okay, he says, "Is there ever a day you don't think about catching that last pitch from the Bulldog for the 88 World Series title?"
Wow.
And has there ever been a pitch more dominant in a year than Bulldog?
No, nobody ever. That was a season of miracles like I've never seen. And, I played in 3 different World Series, 8 divisional championship series and stuff. I've never seen anybody have a season like that. I tell you, it got to the point, Tony, where if I was afraid that Oro might walk a batter in a tough situation, I would tell the hitter, hey, you're going to get a fastball. I promise you, right here. So I'd want them to look at it. Nobody could hit the fastball, even if they knew it was coming. That's how much it broke. He had this weird finger. Let me get it in front of the camera. You see, that's the middle finger. This is the index. It was so much longer that the ball, when you let go of the baseball, it came off this middle finger last. And that thing, the sinker, he used to throw a sinker that like I've never seen. I sat inside to hit the outside corner on a left-hander.
Wow.
And even though they knew the fastball was coming, they geared up for it. They couldn't hit it.
Okay.
It just had way too much movement, and I don't think anybody will ever come close to breaking his record again. Certainly not in our lifetime.
No, not at all. So let's fast forward to today's game, and I want to get your real input on how do you feel about today's game, the rules changes, and especially about this damn launch angle crap.
Oh my God. Well, the analytics of the game. You know what? As I think back, Earl Weaver had the analytics. He would personally write down every single pitch that a guy got a hit on. So we knew ahead of time, who the guys were in certain situations that were better fastball hitters or breaking ball hitters. Lou Piniella was a fabulous breaking ball hitter, especially with men on base. He had statistics like that. Those kind of things are great. Analytics overall is ruining the game of baseball. And I'll tell you why, because when you think that you're going to teach a hitter how to uppercut on a ball and he's going to hit home runs to make a difference, then you're hugely mistaken. I've seen uppercut hitters and they'll hit their 25. Dave Kingman, he was a big uppercut hitter and he hit his 25, but he hit 200. There comes a time when you can win a ball game with a single, and a lot of times with that single, more so than any other hit that you get. Doubles will win ball games for you. Home runs will win ball games for you too, but it makes the game boring for the fans, always waiting for the long ball. I just don't agree with a lot of the analytics on how you should pitch, especially in 2-strike situations. You see you're going to get 90% high fastballs. Where was that high fastball when I had 2 strikes on me? Please. I know I'd be in the Hall of Fame today. That's all I needed to do was hit a little bit more, and teams are getting crazy with it. And you can see a lot of guys making a lot of money in the game, 100, 200, 300, 400 million. I think we're going to see somebody in the 500 million bracket. Who we're talking about?
I think 700.
Maybe 6 or 7, like Ross says.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe $1 billion if the Dodgers have anything to say about it.
Yeah, it could be. But that you're losing the guts of the game. I'm not even thinking of the right word to describe it, but when you need to hit a ball the opposite way to get a runner over from second base to third base, and you got another guy behind you who'll get a sacrifice fly and win a ball game, that's how teams play together. When teams play together, they're impossible to beat. It doesn't matter what the team batting averages are. The one thing that the analytics and the computers don't do for you, They don't analyze game situation.
Right.
Game situation. There's
Or
a
hard,
man
or what kind of heart a person has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
This stuff of putting a guy on second base and in a tie ball game and losing the game on 2 ground balls the opposite way. Come on, are you really? I mean, that's not real baseball. That's new analytical baseball. Um,
And I'm so
I
upset
love the game.
I'm upset that the fact that the bunt has went away from
Disappeared.
baseball.
It's
Disappeared.
gone. No, people don't bunt anymore. They don't practice. They don't even practice it anymore. It's unbelievable.
And I don't think the natural baseball swing is to swing straight up to the sky, the launch angle. I cannot stand it, right?
No, you know what? The launch angle, when you stop and think about it, when you take in your hands and your hands go up in the air and then down and through, you create backspin on the ball, which creates launch angle. Imagine that. Somebody, I never went to college. I figured that out, but no, you can't drop your hands. Whenever I saw anybody who dropped their hands and did all the setting up their swing from down here, and then the ball's coming and they're swinging up and through, they rarely ever squared up the ball.
Wow.
Now, what's your whole opinion on this, Rick? I want to ask you because you're probably close to it. You probably witnessed a few things here or there throughout your years in baseball. What's your theory on having Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa in the Hall of Fame? I mean, I've been around baseball players, and they all say everybody back in the early 90s was doing it. I mean, do you think those guys should be in the Hall of Fame, or do you think they should just keep on excluding people that were caught for or assume they did steroids, like Pomero and people like that? And it was just a time when everybody did it. I believe. I wasn't around the game like you, Rick, but what's your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion was back in the era of steroids. Steroids were not good for any player. They had side effects to them. And we had some pretty big names out there that were doing steroids. And I Major League Baseball wanted to present a better image than that. So they made up the rules, no steroids, okay? And why? Because it gave a guy an advantage. Not long range, though. I don't know too many guys who took steroids in their during their playing days who are in very good physical condition right now. So it not only hurt Major League Baseball players in the long run, but it hurt a lot of high school, college kids who felt that their only opportunity was to start taking steroids, get bigger and stronger, hit more home runs.
Yeah.
When the human growth hormone came in, a lot of guys realized that was their free ticket because it was made from human cadavers, and so therefore you're not going to have the long range effects that the players were having who took steroids. And so, as far as we were all warned, I had an opportunity to take steroids late in my career if I wanted to extend it and everything. What's the difference? 24 or 28?
Right.
How many years do you want to play?
Everybody's whispering, "What's that old bastard doing in the game still? Get him out of here!" I could see where it helped a lot of players on defense at the same time too, just being stronger. But I had a pretty good arm. God blessed me with that, and I was able to last a long time. But I refused to take any drugs at all. And so I knew my time was coming to an end. I was anxious to get into the managing and coaching end of my career. But to answer your question, I'm stuck between. I love Roger and he Clemens, and he had a tremendous career. I just wish he hadn't gone down that road. He didn't need to do it. He was smart. He still had a good fastball. He didn't need 2 or 3 more miles per hour on it.
How about Barry?
It was like gambling. It was
Yeah.
like gambling, you know. We knew if you gambled in baseball that you were going to be out of baseball, or something bad would happen, and they knew it. So I hope someday they change and look at the pre-steroid era and see if these guys still qualify for Hall of Fame, and let's forgive and forget and give them what they earned up to that point.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago about high school and college players.
Yeah.
From a catcher's perspective, what kind of advice would you give them today? A high school catcher or a college catcher? As far
I
as
would
making it to the
say
big leagues.
everybody has forgotten about conditioning in Major League Baseball, especially starting pitchers. Jim Palmer, Flanagan. I caught 16 Cy Young Award winners during the course of my career.
16.
And all of them were
Wait, let's
runners.
stop. I mean, that's unbelievable statistic you just said.
Yeah.
16
Not all
Cy
of
Young
them-
winners,
Yeah.
and I wonder how many of those are Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? It's like no one talks about your career, Rick, and it's unbelievable all the stuff you've been through and all the pitchers that you've caught. I mean,
yeah. I learned a lot from every single one of them. You know, I started off with Jim Cott with Minnesota in 1969. You know, and I would talk to them forever. When they saw me coming, they tried to get it, but I could outrun them. So
Yeah.
I would catch up and ask a million questions about what they look for in a catcher, you know. And a guy like Jim Cott was such a great guy. He would always take the time to tell me, you know, how to set up certain hitters and how he got certain guys out. You know, left-handed's a little bit different sometimes, you know, using the changeup a little more often against right-hand hitters. I noticed that the lefties will do it more than the righties will. And, you know, of course, Orel had the best year ever. I think Helen Keller could have called the game for him as he could put the ball where he wanted. You know, there was so many really good ones. Jim Palmer was off the charts. What he did, I'll tell you a good story, and because I love the guy to death, Steve Stone. He was a so-so pitcher with the Chicago White Sox when he first started out. The most games he ever won was 12. He came and pitched in the first game against us. He had a 2-run lead going into the 9th inning. He had 1 out, men on second and third. A right-hand hitter was up, 2 strikes and no balls. And I called for a curveball in the dirt. And I had a special sign when I wanted it in the dirt.
Show us the sign real quick. Let me see the sign.
What was that?
Let me see the sign that you wanted when the curveball in the dirt. What was the sign you gave?
Well, I would just say curveball, and then I'd go like this, you know, a little hand movement.
Oh, got it.
Just met in the dirt. Okay. He stepped off the mound like I had just killed his mother.
Oh.
What the heck are you calling for? So he calls me out. I said, yeah, what do you need, Steve? He goes, listen, I'm not going to throw a curveball in the dirt. And a runner at third base scores and the winning run goes to third, and I end up getting us lost. And I said, Steve, listen, you don't throw good enough to get the ball by me.
He said that? And then what happened?
I said, no, you don't throw the ball good enough to get it by me.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, throw the damn curveball in the dirt and we'll go and get the third guy out some other way.
Wow.
So he throws the curveball in the dirt. The batter swung at it. I blocked it, and I fired that ball back to him hard enough to throw somebody out at second base. Woo!
That's funny. Now, if you were a scout today, what would you look for in a high school or college catcher?
In a high school or college catcher?
Yeah.
Well, I would probably look for the flexibility of that guy. What was he capable to do? How fast can he be with his footwork? They've taken footwork out of the game now, everybody.
Right.
I just want to punch the guy in the face who came up with that, who'd probably never played Major League Baseball, but he's going to tell these guys how that you have to go to one. I was flexible enough to give the target on the ground from a low catching stance.
Can I say something? And Ross, And he's right about that, because just last week when we were coaching the college team, he was talking to me about, I was complaining about my bag. He's like, well, you're just not flexible enough, right? So this guy right here, Rick Dempsey, he put his hands on the ground, standing straight up. Is that true story, Rick?
Yeah, I almost put my elbows on the ground.
Yeah.
Well,
So
he played 24
putting the
years
palm
of
of your
Major League
hands
Baseball.
down on the ground isn't such a big deal, but being able to, have that kind of flexibility in your lower back where I could almost I'm just about that far from being able to put my elbows on the ground. Let me get it back in again. About that far. Probably lost a little bit of that flexibility since I haven't caught in quite a few years.
Right.
But I could do a hurdler exercise on the floor and put my head still on the floor. No, not very many people can even get halfway to the knee. But when you have that kind of flexibility, you're going to sidestep a lot of injury. A lot of guys will hit you. And if you don't have the flexibility to give a little bit in all your joints, then, you're going to pay the price, So,
yeah. So let's talk about the current players right now. I mean, the players now there's some really fantastic players that are just tearing it up. And let's start with your guy in Baltimore, Adley Rutschman. I mean, this guy, he's a catcher, your position. He was in the home running contest. He didn't win, but he looked good.
Oh my God, he's awesome.
On both sides of the plate.
How good is this guy, and what do you expect from him?
Well, to be honest with you, Adley Rutschman's my favorite player. I love his approach to the pitching staff. He communicates with them. He's very close to them. He talks and he gets a lot out of that pitching staff. I think some of the best, I do not like to see him go to one knee. He doesn't need that. Maybe in nobody on base and a 2-strike situation, go to one knee. But too much movement. And of course, this Ross is the analytical era of baseball. They put the target right down the middle of the plate. I know that they're saying to themselves, okay, nobody can hit the target right down the middle of the plate very often, so we're going to catch a corner someplace by doing that. Nuh-uh. Pitching is precision. Catching is precision. And I'll go a step farther, Ross, too, and throw this out there. Major league catchers, especially first-string catchers, need to spend more time with the starting pitchers and that warm up between starts in the bullpen. They hire 2 or 3 guys to come in and do all the grunt work. That's when you have to find a pitcher's release point. You have to work on that in the boat. When you get to his release point, you say that's where it should be, right there. They don't have that kind of communication anymore. I used to sit down there. Yeah, it's hard to warm up guys every day before batting practice even begins. But it was my opportunity to help the pitcher, to listen to the pitching coach, the adjustments that they have to make in order to get back on track. And all of them fall out of track. All of them have trouble in the first inning finding a good release point, And now they give it to guys that they hire are doing the work that the major league catchers should work in that bullpen to get their pitching staff. It's like having 13 wives down there. You want somebody else warming up your wife every day?
No.
Play the big game? No. Well, that's how important it is.
But why is that, Rick? Why? I mean, if you know this, this knowledge of how important it is to warm up your starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Why don't teams do that? I mean, it's an edge that I've seen that can really help, especially in their first few innings of a game, because teams do score runs in the first inning a lot.
I think if general managers realized how important it was, they would make their guys do that.
Yeah.
Catching coaches are coming up now, and they have no clue that that's part of the whole grand. That's why you catch 16 Cy Young Award winners. That's why you win all the divisional titles that I was part of, actually 7 divisional titles. One of them, we won the most games in the American League one year, but because they split the first half winner and the second half winner got to do it, we had the best record overall and didn't play in the playoffs one year. But, it's just working on the little things, and it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to sit down there the whole time that the guy's throwing, but you do have to get him to a point where he can throw the ball over the plate by making a good delivery. And he's having trouble with his curveball, and all of a sudden, you got him back on track again. Not much a catcher can say when he goes to the mound, and of course, admitted to get his guy back on track, either speed up, get your arm up, or make a better turn. Those are the only three things you can say to a pitcher. The rest of it, you're not going to tell him you're not holding your curveball well, blah, 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 move over on the mound or someplace like that. You can't do those kind of things during the course of the game, but you can make some pretty good pitchers just by saying, listen, will you make a better turn? Because when you make a turn, your arm goes back by itself, and now there's no stress.
The thing that drives Tony and I crazy, because we're old school guys. We remember the Bob Gibsons and the Don Gellicks, people like that. That's who we grew up with. Is the coaches are so like worried about pitch count, and that's all. People. Oh, this pitcher in LSU threw 150 pitches. Oh my, his arm's going to fall off.
Yep.
I mean, what's your theory on pitch count?
Time out. I'm glad you asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest thing. I don't want to punch somebody else in the mouth. I don't know who it is.
Tony Todd.
Whoever told these catchers to move back from home plate. Now you'll see catchers, and I've got pictures and videos. When I had my pre and post game shows, I would take the videos of all of where catchers would set up. Now, when I set up behind home plate, every pitch, I could touch the left-hander or the right-hander's knee with my right or left hand, okay? Now I set up barely up. But when I gave my target, it wasn't one of those kind of targets where you got to stick your hand out as far as you could do it. It was, maybe 3/4 of that where I had a little bend and flexibility mark. I got clipped once in a while, a guy swinging late or something like that. But the backswing of the hitter was behind me, not in front of me. So now catchers are like 3 feet farther back than I ever caught in my entire career. Now you think about it, because I've seen a million videos. That breaking ball on the outside corner, when it goes across the plate, it nips that corner. It's a strike. But by the time you catch it, it's I can't even get you in the camera here. It's so far to your right from a right-hander that you have to backhand the ball, and it was a strike when it went through the strike zone. So, what have they done? They moved the catcher back to keep him from getting hit by the backswing. Come on. I had 27 years, and I got hit on the elbow maybe 2 or 3 times by guys that throw the bat. Mm-hmm. You'd say, hey, listen, don't do that again, or you and I are going to hook up. Hey, and it was over with. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, don't worry. Well, don't worry about it. Just don't throw it when you hit. But I never got hurt back there. I never spent any time on the disabled list or anything like that for that reason. So, yeah. I mean, that has ruined. The pitchers are the same pitchers that I got. The only problem is if you catch 3 feet farther back, you're not going to get pitches on the corner called strikes. It's about 15% difference, that you're going to get. If you move up on home plate and you sit on the corners where you should be, you're going to get 8 to 10 more counts that are 2 and 2 rather 3 and 1. 3 and 1's a hitter's count. Right. 2 and 2 is a pitcher's count. So if you're giving away the 2 and 2 pitch to the hitter, your pitcher is going to be in a lot of trouble.
Right. So I
like getting along with my pitchers because they wanted me to be in that game for them.
So do you think that the pitchers are just not, conditioned enough, like Ross said, to go 9 innings? Because you imagine going to the mound and telling Bob Gibson after 5 innings you're coming out, and he's, he has 11
oh my God. He'd say, I'm going to drill you on the way back to the dugout. Now get the hell out of here.
Right.
Guys like that are just incredible guys to work with in a baseball game. Mm-hmm. Come on. Baseball is about throwing strikes and winning baseball games, and people have come up with some crazy ideas of things to do. Moving the catcher back is probably the worst idea anybody's come up with in a long time. Going to one knee is the second worst. Now go to the other positions because they're pretty basic out there. The infield's a little trickier, but outfield is easy.
Okay, great.
But why the heck do you see so many balls getting dropped? Well, because every now and then when a guy gets close to it, right at the last tenth of a second, that glove goes right in front of your eyes, and the ball goes from here to here off the heel of your glove, and they drop the ball. Pretty academic, if you ask me. So don't let the glove get in front of your eyes. Stay at an angle where you can always catch it and watch it go into the mitt.
Right. So we have another question from Mr. Chris McCartney. He says,
Chris, again,
what was the reaction like in the locker room after Gibson's home run in game 1?
Oh,
and he said, hold up. He says, an honor. He says, an honor, sir. Thank you. And the Blue Crew for the 88 title. Everyone was so clutch.
Yeah, they were. I mean, we just had a team. We only had 5 guys that started every day on that ball club. The rest of us were platoon guys. We called ourselves the stuntmen at spring training because we had to go in for all the stars, make them look good and all that stuff. So we had an incredible group of stars on that team. Yeah, I've got that picture right behind me. Can you give me 1 second to get it?
Get it.
Go for it.
Hold up.
That's so awesome.
Oh, here we go.
More in the middle.
Picture up
Can't see
there.
it.
I'll show you.
So Chris McCartney, he'll love this.
Go in the middle.
Okay.
There you go.
There they are. Yeah, Danny Heap, Dave Anderson, Rene Gonzalez, Mickey Hatcher, myself, Franklin Stubbs. I mean, these guys came in ball games. They were good players, maybe on a lot of teams starters, but with the Dodgers that particular year, Tommy platooned us beautifully. I played against the left-handers. Mike played against the right-handers. And we found ways to win baseball games at spring training because there was no pressure on us. We weren't the starting guys, that had to go out there and hit 300 to stay in the lineup or something.
Right.
We just went into ball games. Franklin Stubbs would come in. He'd pinch hit against a right-hander, tough guy, base hit, game over. Mickey Hatcher, look what he did in the World Series. 2 home runs, and he didn't hit any home runs at all the whole season. None. Dave Anderson, and you just didn't realize how good these guys really were. On some teams, they'd be playing every day, but they knew how to play. They knew how to play together.
Right.
There's such a big difference between a lot of guys who can play, but if they don't play together, if they don't do the little things that win baseball games, then you get lost.
I agree with you. And a good example is the Tampa Bay team in the first 2 months of the season. I mean, they didn't have any huge, they'd had a few big names like Wando Franco, people like that. But overall, they had guys that I never heard of, and they were winning games. They were breaking records for how many wins they were getting in those 2 months. And, it's not because they had a great team. They just played well together, like you just said, Rick. It makes a huge difference.
I've talked about, the things that really bring pitching staffs and together with the catchers on ball clubs. And one of the teams that sticks out for me, and I feel awful for the general manager, A.J. Preller, the San Diego Padres, that has an all-star team out there. But the way that the pitchers and the catchers work with that ball club, you're not getting half of the talent out of them, with that agenda that they have there. That team ought to be leading Major League Baseball.
Can I give you an example what happened this weekend with that team? So
yeah.
So Blake Snell, who's having an unbelievable past 2 months. He started out slow, but he's probably the best pitcher right now in the National League. Him and Spencer Strider are probably the 2 best. So Blake Snell pitched 5 scoreless innings, okay? 5 scoreless. We're winning 3-0. The manager decides, let's take him out. I'm worried about the pitch counts. And the Padres end up losing the game. They end up losing the game 5-4, whatever they lost. They lost the game Snell struck out like 9 people. He was on a huge roll. But it's just like, why are you taking out Blake Snell in the 5th inning when you're up 3-0? You don't you leave him in. If you had to throw 100.
Yeah. You have to depend, especially this time of the year is when you make hay. There's that relationship. There's that preseason conditioning that I'm talking about.
Yes.
These guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. In the wintertime, they need to prepare them. You don't go home and go fishing for a month and then hunting for a month and then golf with the buddies for a couple months because you're late to the dinner table. You spend all that time where you should constantly be keeping your arm stretched out. Just playing long catch and everything will strengthen your arm, keeping that motivated. Then maybe get on the mound a month and a half before spring training starts and start to throw 2, maybe 3 innings. And by the time you get to spring training, you're, I won't say mid-season shape, but maybe a quarter of the way through the season, you're in good shape. And then by the time spring training's over, you should be able to throw 9 innings. Imagine that. You should be able to throw 9 innings. And when you have a Blake Snell, who is incredible when he gets it rocking and rolling, I know what you're talking about, Ross, is that he struck out the Dodgers, 2 guys. Everybody in the lineup struck out twice, and he got to the 5th inning, and he goes 5 1/3 innings. They take him out of the game.
We were there. Tony and I were at that game.
I know it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I mean, I love Blake Snell, and because he's a competitor out there on the mound, and he goes. But I would question, his preseason conditioning. I would question his in-season conditioning with the catchers, whether they spend enough time together to get him on track where it goes. And then I would also question whether or not he has a good idea about what the National League was all about before he got there.
Right.
I couldn't believe, as good as he was the year he won the Cy Young Award that year, and the next year, man, you couldn't keep him in the rotation. He got hit and everything. Blake is just too awesome.
Right.
He's just too good for that kind of stuff to be happening. And I'm sure that A.J. Preller was disappointed about that, and everybody else in San Diego, because look, he could carry this team on his back by himself. Not A.J. Preller, but Blake Snell.
Blake.
And they've got a couple of other really good starting pitchers in there that should be dominating.
Yeah,
and I think that has to do
anything. Yu Darvish has not done anything. Musgrove has been hurt.
Musgrove is very impressive. Yeah.
Well,
but
I
they
think
should never get hurt. Why
Right.
did he get hurt?
right.
No, you didn't hear the story? What happened? How he got hurt?
No.
He was working out and he dropped a dumbbell on his toe and he broke his toe.
Well,
yeah, that's what he did. That's
there's
what
another
Musgrove did.
thing.
He was out for like
I
6
know
weeks.
it's good to stay strong and everything, but
Dropping a dumbbell on your toe?
Yeah, but I played 27 years of professional baseball and never had to lift a weight during the season.
Right.
That stuff is wintertime stuff.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself during the baseball season. You do little things. They got all sorts of ropes and everything that you can do and stuff. But the heavy weightlifting hurts. A lot of guys get hurt.
Yes.
They tear bicep doing.
And when you were coming up, you probably didn't even know what an oblique was, right?
I knew what an oblique was, but I never hurt myself.
Right.
But I always had that flexibility. You work on that in the wintertime, The most important exercise for me in the gym was to keep, my feet strong. Believe it or not, that for a catcher to be able to catch, all the innings that you catch on the balls of your feet and being able to move quickly and block balls and keep that runner, keep that double play in order, keep those guys,
right.
No balls get by you that don't bounce over your head.
Exactly.
You
Well,
know?
I think it's time for the Padres to hire you as a consultant. You know,
I would love to be a consultant. I love the Dodgers. I almost feel like I'd be cheating on them there, but I love AJ Preller. And
okay.
I know I talked to him briefly on the phone, but I watched a couple of video interviews of his, and I said, this guy is legit. He's down to earth guy, and yeah, if I wanted to come back and do something in baseball, I'd certainly do it for him.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Rick, I just want to say thank you for coming on, man. This has been a blessing for Ross and
Wait a
I.
minute, are we done already? We're just
It's
getting going,
55
Ross.
minutes.
Hey,
Come on, Ross.
after the Padres, hire you as a
We'll have
consultant,
we'll have you on again, Rick. Don't
we'll
worry.
have you on again because we love your
Well,
story.
we'll have you on. You know what, Tony? We'll have him on when the
I
playoffs
didn't
start.
even get to finish my Steve Stone story.
Well,
Well,
finish
Steve
it.
Stone was
I'll
a
go
great
out on
broadcaster too. He was with Harry Carey. I don't know if you remember.
I know it.
Him and Harry, they were great together.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, finish the
But
story.
anyway, I told him that he wins his first game.
Mhm.
Okay. Then he learns a little bit about pitching out of the strike zone when he's ahead in the count. How many games do you think he won that year? He only won 12, was the most he ever won.
Yeah, I say.
Take a wild guess.
I say
23?
5.
How much?
5.
I said 5.
5 games. What do you think, Tony?
I said 23, but that's.
Oh, you were close. 25 and 7. Can you believe that? Going
Wow.
from 12 and 2 or 12 and 4, some shit like that was his best record. So I mean, it was a miraculous year, but this guy pitched his rear end off, man. I'll tell you. And we had a great
Do you still
time.
talk to Steve? Do you still talk to Steve? He's still.
I'm a business partner with him. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We I've got some pretty big heavy hitter backers and everything that I actually was prepared to put in $14 billion for the Oakland A's to move from Oakland a couple months ago to Las Vegas.
Vegas, yes.
Wow.
And they, for some reason, didn't. They kind of turned their back on the deal because we had set it up that we wanted to get our first deal done with Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to give them, maybe after they supposedly bought this piece of property, we were going to give them $3.6 billion interest free.
Wow.
How can you pass that up?
Can't.
Wow.
Interest free.
But they're still moving, though, correct?
Well, that hasn't totally been determined yet.
Oh, well, maybe they come back around to you.
Maybe they will. Maybe they will.
You always have to
I
think
like
positive.
those guys up there, though. They got some people that are trying hard. I hope
okay.
they make the right decision here.
Yeah.
I think they'll be in Vegas very soon. I don't think they'll be in Oakland much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how can you stay there when you have 200 fans at every game?
And their owners is like the richest owner of all the Major League Baseball teams.
Well,
the lowest salary.
John Fisher, Mr. Fisher, I don't know where he stands in that. If he's the richest, then he doesn't need us. But we had 135 acres in Henderson for him, which is 7 minutes from the Strip.
Yes.
But if he put that state-of-the-art ballpark in Henderson on that 135 acres, you build a whole shopping center,
yes, you're right.
children's entertainment center,
You're right.
hotels, all sorts of stuff there for him. The city of Las Vegas would grow around that stadium.
Yeah. I agree, and
they wouldn't need the
traffic situation. Having a stadium on the Strip
it'd be kind of tough.
It'd be horrible. I mean, it'd be horrible to have a game, 80 games in Vegas on the Strip at night. I mean, it'd be a traffic nightmare.
I don't know much about the Strip. I haven't spent a long time in Vegas, but if they did decide to do something there, I'd do it where I created my own community.
That's good.
That's what, with the $14 billion I have ready for him to go, he could build his own community there and just be state-of-the-art baseball stadium, open and closed dome. And we'd be able to put professional tennis in there and all sorts of concerts. And we'll make sure people, all the music lovers will have all their favorite people in there. So, it's right there for them. They
That's
deserve
awesome.
it. They were a great organization a long
Yeah.
time ago. Let's get
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rick. So
All right,
Ross and
Tony, thanks for having
Ross
me.
and I know we know who to call if we need a loan. So
No interest loans.
yeah, no interest loan. But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you really impressed me last week, by doing the splits out there. And you made that call during the game to get us that extra at bats. That really helped.
You got it, brother.
just wanna
Okay,
say
yeah, we
thank
had
you.
to get that.
Always a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Okay, Ross, thank you.
a
Anytime,
good
you
one.
guys.
Bye-bye.
That'd be great. We'll have you on when playoffs start.
Yep.
You got it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, buddy.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, fellas.
Thanks.